Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us to hear from this panel of female demolition professionals. My name is Natalie DeHart. I'm the Membership and Operations Director for NDA, and I have the pleasure of interviewing these lovely ladies as they discuss the state of the industry and their career paths as women in this typically male-dominated field. Through our discussion, we hope to highlight why other women should join this industry and explain different ways male colleagues can be allies to their female coworkers. Lamont Counts is the Director of Demolition for the City of Detroit and a 30-year veteran in construction and contractor management. In 2020, she was appointed by Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan to lead the newly formed Demolition Department and oversee the execution of a $250 million bond initiative created to address more than 8,000 blighted residential properties. Counts has led major construction and development projects, including a $101 million high-rise apartment complex. Before taking the helm of Detroit's Demolition Department, Ms. Counts served in various roles with the City of Detroit, including Superintendent of Building Maintenance and General Services Director, where she managed maintenance services for 140-plus facilities. In late 2022, Mayor Duggan returned responsibility for capital projects with facilities back to Counts, instituting a cradle-to-grave philosophy with responsibility for the construction and care of all city-owned properties throughout their useful life. Ms. Counts, who has been with the City of Detroit for over 26 years, earned a BS in Building Construction Technology from Michigan State University, go green, and is a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Sandy Badami Oka. Sandy graduated from Buffalo State University with a bachelor's degree in business administration and photography. Sandy started working in the demolition industry when she was just a young girl, completing administrative tasks around the office. Since then, she has worked her way into a position which has become the catalyst that has helped propel Total Wrecking and Environmental to a nationally recognized industrial demolition and environmental contractor. With her efforts, the company realized 500% growth over the course of 5 years. Sandy managed to procure and secure over $200 million in contracts over her years with Total Wrecking. She has been an integral part of the operations with an eye on quality control processes and employee relations, including working closely with the procurement and estimating team as her role continues to grow. Her branding and marketing efforts have brought much national attention to Total Wrecking, with over 500 articles published across the globe in the last 3 months. Her tireless efforts have helped secure projects with Fortune 500 and large organizations such as General Electric, Jacksonville Electric Authority, Florida Power and Light, Georgia Pacific, Starwood Energy, American Electric Power, Lakeland Electric, Gilbane Building Co., and Louisville Gas and Electric, just to name a few. Her efforts have not gone unnoticed with her industry peers, and she has become a well-respected professional authority in her field and a formative competitor. She is paving the way for women in construction industry and a true nucleus of Total Wrecking and Environmental. And finally, we have Ava Severino. Ava Severino is a senior at Kent State University, where she studies construction management. After graduation, she has accepted a full-time job with Independence Demolition as a project engineer. Prior to accepting this job, she worked as a co-op for Independence Excavating, Independence Construction, and Independence Demolition. Welcome. All right. Yes. Let's dive right in. All right. So we'll start with an easy one. Please give us an overview of your career path and what has inspired you to get into the demolition industry. Anyone? I can pass to you.
Can everybody hear me? All right, first off, I'd like to say thank you for allowing me to share my story and to continue to shed light on women in the industry. I think a lot of times we lose focus how important it is to make sure that our representation is being shown. My start in construction, I came in very cold. I had no construction experience, no background, no connection to it whatsoever. Was pushed into the the focus with Michigan State University, graduated with a degree in construction management, left and went to work for a private custom home builder before eventually working with the city of Detroit. I came in at a very entry level. I started doing road construction and progressed up until I eventually was managing the $100 million senior high-rise developments, which is Jeffries and Douglas, and then eventually transitioned over to working for the demolition department. But I have always managed to, wherever I landed, I started at that entry level. So even though I started with the construction company, I came in as a laborer. So my first 2 years was spent just working as a laborer. I went up to do estimating and then eventually progressed up to become a superintendent of the sites. And it's always been that work ethic that I had. It didn't matter if I didn't know the trade that existed, I was going to learn it. And I was grateful in the sense that I encountered a lot of subs along the way that was willing to show me. At that time, I was not considered a threat to anybody, right? Because how far is this girl really going to go? So I was able to get in the trenches with the plumbers and see exactly what the connection looked like. I was up on scaffolding with the structural team in order to see exactly what those connections were looking like. My life in construction has really been very hands-on throughout this entire time, and I make sure that I continue to have that kind of access to people who work underneath me to allow them that opportunity to grow as well. And it's really important to me that we are looking back and remembering what we went through. Remember what I went through, not so much while y'all, but remember what I went through and how important it was for me to have those mentors or people who were willing to give me that opportunity to show what I was capable of. That's very important to me now. It's very important to my staff to understand that it doesn't matter if you don't know it right now. We can get you the training. We can show you exactly how to do it the right way. And that's what I take on as my intentional purpose.
That's impressive. From the bottom to the top, yeah, for sure. Ava, I know that you're studying this, so what inspired you?
It kind of was a natural selection to get into construction. My whole entire family on both sides, my dad, my uncles, cousins, grandfathers, everyone is in construction. Those were the only jobs I ever had. I started working for my dad as a laborer, and I was so embarrassed that I didn't tell my friends that was my job. I would go to work, they're like, oh, where do you work? I'm like, oh, I babysit. But no, I'd make, sweep the shop floor, I'd have to help the mechanics change oil and the equipment. Every other job you could think of that you wouldn't want is what I had to do. And sometimes working for family, they think, oh, you got it easier. No, you couldn't call off, you couldn't be late to work, you couldn't slack off, nothing like that. So then eventually, throughout high school, those were my jobs. I went to college at Kent State. I wanted to go to fashion school. My dad told me, if you want to draw pictures all day, find someone else to pay for it, because I'm not. I'm like, oh, okay, fair. So I went to advertising. I'm like, yeah, I don't like this. And I went to a construction class as a dare. One of my friends dared me. He's like, yeah, go ahead, I'll give you 20 bucks. I'm like, all right. So I go and I'm sitting in the very back of the classroom and I keep wanting to raise my hand. I'm like, oh, I know the answer to that. I know what this is. I talked to the professor after class and we sat down for 2 hours that day and I switched my major right there. And so I've been educationally in construction as well since then. Throughout college I had a few other internships, but then 2 years ago I started working with independents, and they've given me the opportunity to float between many different industries within their own company. And this past summer I got into demolition on some Ford projects, and I loved it. It was exciting, everything was always new, and yeah, that's what brought me here.
That's great. And you're also one of our scholarship recipients this year.
Yes,
so
correct.
That's awesome. What about you, Sandy?
So I like to say, kind of similar to Ava, my story is actually a bit similar to you, which is funny. So I like to say I came out the womb knowing demolition. I was born and I was pushed right into the office, and that's what I did. So I also graduated high school, and I had a dream with my best friend to go to New York City. We were going to study fashion. I actually got into FIT, LIM, and then my dad and his business partner decided to split. Frank wanted to do bigger things, and his business partner didn't. And I said, I'm going to stay here, and I'm gonna help do that. So I gave up the fashion, and I came to the office, and I was working back and forth between Buffalo State University, photo lab, business classes, and I ended up just loving the culture, loving the fact that it was a family-oriented business, but it was a national company. So although we had family values, we were national, and we were making a name for ourselves, and we were moving things. And so I started working. I started on marketing, and Frank, I call him Frank at the office, I call him Dad at home. So he's like, you know what, I need someone to find me big power plans. So here's this, go ahead, give him a call and figure it out. I'm like, all right. And I make my first call, and some grumpy old guy gets on the phone. He's like, you're not taking down my power plant. Click. And I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a learning curve. So I kind of just taught myself, what do you do to make people want to talk to you? Especially, you know, what this is about is being a woman in the industry. It's a lot harder to say, I know demolition. So I created my own toolbook for what it is to talk to plant managers, because those types of people, they work in the plant, they build the plant, they feed their family with that plant. So a lot of my career has been learning how to talk to people, and then also I am an open book of knowledge. So I go to my senior project managers and I ask them why. What's the why behind that? What can I do to learn what you're doing, or my estimating team? So I've just continued to involve myself, whether it's trade shows, conferences, seminars, in the industry, outside of the industry, to learn what it is to work. I didn't go to school for construction. I just kind of figured it out with the School of Hard Knocks, and now I'm here. And lastly, I'll say it's funny because I grew up coming to these conventions when I was 2 years old. My father, my grandfather, I would walk around the Gaylord hotels, and I thought my feet were tired then. So it's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
So great. Thank you all so much. So Sandy, I know that you just sort of mentioned a few skills and advantages of being able to talk to people. What, for the rest of our panelists, what skills and advantages do you all feel that you have that your male colleagues might not?
I'm just going to jump in. So I have the amazing ability to be able to read exactly what's going on, right? I can sense that conversation, whether it's a contract negotiation or direction in the field, is going to start to go left, and I'm going to redirect it as quickly as I can. I understand how important and necessary it is for us to always operate as a team. Right now, my role is an owner, and I understand I have my position. I'm supposed to operate from this side. I have contractors who work for me, and we can't be in opposition of each other, even though we technically are. But my skill set allows me to see it's going to happen. Steve is going to get pissed. I gotta squash that really quickly, because we still got to get this property down. And I don't care that Steve is pissed right now. He'll be okay in 2 minutes as long as we can figure out how we're going to manage that. A lot of times I'll see with some of my, at the superintendent level, I have a lot of egos, and it turns into I'm going to outpish you, and that's counterproductive, right? I need to get my work done. Yeah, you can have an attitude, and I can have an opinion, and I can have my own attitude, but at the end of the day, we got to get the work done.
That's amazing. That's a great answer. What would you all say is your favorite part about working in the demolition industry or on a demolition project?
I think I would say the collaboration between the field and the office, and also the community that you go into. So something that I personally have started to bring to Total Wrecking, and it's something that we've always done, but even more so now, is giving back to the communities you serve, making sure that your people are understood. They have the right to say, I feel this, and we fix it. I want everyone to feel happy, you know, mentally in their position. And so the best part about demolition is the collaboration and everyone getting together, learning from different types of backgrounds, and then getting to go out in the field and see what they do. I'm in the office all day. I want to know what you do. So yeah, different cultures, it's awesome. And we break the rules of engineering, so that's fun.
Breaking rules. Ava, I'm going to toss this one to you. What would you say, what are the career goals that you have? You know, I know that you're sort of just starting out. What would you say are your goals?
So I was saying this to my parents the other day when I was talking to them about this, and I'm like, I don't know if this is the right thing to say, but I feel like a goal of mine is to always be striving to sit in the seats of my bosses, the people that are in charge of me, the people that are role models to me. My goal is to take over their job at some point. I mean, definitely be grateful and appreciative for where I'm at now, but always be wanting to get a little bit better and do exactly what they do.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Learning from those that have come before you, very wise move. What would you all like your male colleagues to know?
I have a couple of good stories. So I obviously go to trade shows and I talk to people, and I'll do a quick couple long story shorts. So we were at a Meet the Primes meeting a month ago, and we had subcontractors come up to us, and one of our suppliers walked up to us, and I was there with Frank Sr., Frank Jr., and two of our estimators. And Frank Jr. was sitting at a table, and I was up talking with Frank to a supplier, and the supplier won't look at me, comments. I'm like, oh, I'm used to this. So I'm standing there, and the supplier looks at Frank, and he's like, so, where's Frank Jr.? Are you grooming him to come up and take over the company? And I didn't let Frank answer. I looked at the guy and I said, hey, I'm Sandy, I'm standing right here. I said, what can I do to help you? I'm the demolition side of the business. Frank is working in redevelopment, and if you have any questions about that, he can help you. But I do, have that authority to talk if you have any questions. And his coworker was visibly embarrassed. So I hope that the next time he is in a situation like that, he doesn't put his foot in his mouth. And another really quick one is I was at a trade show one time, and I walked up to BASF, they're a tough chemical company, and I was like, hey, I'm here to talk about your demo. I've been calling them for years, and they laughed at me. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. So I'm like, we don't have to talk about demo, we could talk about TSCA, RCRA, asbestos abatement, and his coworkers started laughing at him. We're all LinkedIn friends now, so that worked out well, but you just got to keep going, and you can't walk away from a conversation because you have to prove that you know what you're talking about and not let them make you feel like you don't. So.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah, love for that. Yeah, that's good. Do you have any stories?
I guess for me, it's more so, it's slightly offensive that I have to prove that I know what I know. I think that the fact that when you sat here and read everything that you read about me, I was like, geez, I would like to hire her. It's offensive to know that I have 30 years in the construction industry, and I'll have someone who was probably 2 years in question me about a direction that I gave. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. You don't get to stay around for 30 years if you don't. And in that regards, it's kind of the mansplaining piece, right? I know it doesn't look like I get out in the trenches, but I do. I don't have a problem with doing my own work. I've done it in the past. If I have to go back to doing construction and out in the field again, I can do that too. But the fact that sometimes we'll get that just, you couldn't possibly understand what I'm talking about. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, come on. The city has entrusted $500 million worth of demolition work in my hands. I think I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. That sort of leads into my next question. What barriers to entry have you experienced throughout the process of your career?
You know, I was very fortunate in the beginning. I think the city was starved for people who had talent to actually be able to perform some of these roles. And so in that regards, I was fortunate. I was able to come in at a very entry level, and because I'm going to work hard regardless of whatever the task is, that was showcased, and people began to talk. So across the city, you know, other managers were saying, hey, have you heard about this girl? She's over in public works doing sidewalks right now. And from that, it took me over to housing. And I was doing small projects at housing. Before you knew it, someone else said, oh, I used to work for her, and she could come over here to recreation. For me, I got lucky just because there was no one who could do what I was doing in the city at the time. I would not have been so lucky had there been some other people there, right? what the city has afforded me is an opportunity to be able to do those bigger projects that I was not able to do in the private sector because I was not able to find a position in the private world outside of that small residential builder. So for me, it was just that, I don't know. I don't know if it was the address that was on my resume. I do have a slightly ethnic name, you know, so when that comes across your desk, maybe you're not so willing to take a chance and call her in and talk to her. I got lucky with the interview one time because he thought I was a man, and when I showed up, you know, that conversation went differently. You know, and the shock on his face proved that he didn't know that I was clearly a woman. I think at that point it was more so, you know, I didn't even know that I had been rejected, right? Because I never got my foot in the door. I landed with the city, and because it was such a, you know, a desert for talent at the time, I was able to be successful because I was going to be successful wherever I went. Let's be clear. But at the time, the talent just wasn't there.
Yeah. What about either of you, Ava?
I was going to say I was very fortunate at the beginning of my career when I worked doing the jobs I didn't want to. I didn't know it was going to lead into the career for the rest of my life, but I have experienced some maybe not okay comments in the classroom. Sometimes I was telling these ladies, it's normal for me to go to class and be the only girl in a class, the only girl in a lecture hall or whatever. And multiple times on different occasions, I've sat there, they've done roll call, and they've called me out. They're like, "Are you sure you're in the right class? Are you positive?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure." And then in front of the whole entire class will question me. It's like, yeah, I don't know what else you want me to say. Yeah, I'm in this class, or, you know, but from an employer, I've never experienced a barrier to entry, which I'm fortunate for. But here's a quick story. When I was in high school and I was working, I went to go pick up lumber for concrete forms, and I went to the lumber yard. This guy, he so clearly did not have the time to be doing what I asked for, and he gave me all of these pieces of lumber that were crooked, splintered, whatever, and I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna work. I need some straight, whatever. He's like, "Oh, sweetheart, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, this is fine, this will work." I'm like, no, I need it right now. And if a grown man in my position were to say that to you, you'd be like, "Okay, sir, no problem." But, you know, a lot of times you get judged, and like you said, you have to prove yourself, whereas a male counterpart wouldn't necessarily have to do that.
That's a really good point. What about you, Sandy?
For me, I would say more so, and I'm fortunate as well, I don't experience it as much, but I'm the boss's daughter, right? I'm in the office and I'm the boss's daughter, but I'm not the boss's daughter. I have a name, it's Sandy Bodami Oka. I have a title, I have job responsibilities, I have coworkers, and that's my job. I'm here to do a job, and I'm here to be a family at the end of the day. So I am constantly proving myself that I'm doing the work, and I'm not, you know, getting the short or the easy way in or the easy road. I actually feel like I work more because I'm in the family, and I feel like I have to keep doing more. But there is one guy in my office who I love dearly. We have a great relationship, but he'll test me, and I'll look at him and I'll say, "Are you done?" And then when he's done, we continue on, and we're best friends. So.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm sure that this audience might have some questions for you, so we're going to open up the floor to some Q&A. If anybody has a question. Yeah. Do you have a mic?
I gave it to her.
Sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
Assuming that place of, you know, coming at ground zero, kind of total ignorance of, you know, the industry, what would somebody, you know, wanting to have a more diverse workforce have said to you to get you involved? And Ava specifically, like, what did your professor say to you during that 2-hour conversation?
So, ironically, this professor, I didn't know this at the time, we went to the same high school, and our families know each other. He worked for my dad when he was in college. And so, it was one of those things that going on about our conversation, it was like meant to be almost. I'm like, wait, why did I never think of this? There's so many opportunities for me. It's, as many people that know me would say, it's in my blood. Like, why did I never think that this was an option? It might have been because I'm a woman. I mean, that definitely is probably why. I mean, you guys all know the things that men say and do on a job site. I'm sure my dad didn't want to push me into that realm, but we're all obviously changing that, so I don't know.
For me, I sound like a hypocrite in a minute when I finish. Oddly enough, what was said to me that got me into the industry was I had my counselor at the time who told me, you know, I asked how did I end up where I was, because at that point I was on my way to having my degree. I was about to graduate that semester, and she told me, you'll be okay. You're black and you're a woman. You'll do fine in the industry. Now, knowing what I know now, I probably should slap her because it was a struggle along the way, right? But what I would have liked to probably have heard then was that you can potentially set your family and the generations behind you with opportunities to provide well beyond you. So while I'm very successful in the construction business, unfortunately my daughter didn't come this route, but I still got a granddaughter who I might be able to convince over. It's an opportunity for me to create like a generational foundation for my family. That's something that we did not have. Prior to me going away to school, my family, my dad worked for the plant, my mom was a nurse, right? There's no opportunity for us to open a hospital. That wasn't gonna happen. But there is an opportunity for my family to have that kind of trade background where they can create their own whatever moving forward.
I would say I don't have as many because I was put into a job where I was going back and forth from class to college. So again, I was lucky. And I'll kind of go towards the blue-collar field and how you're saying you're setting your family up for different careers. Something that I'm really big on, and I don't know if I'm 100% answering your question, but lessons learned and telling kids that you don't have to have a 100% college degree. You don't have to have all the experience. All you have to do is have a desire and a drive to want to work and do good. And if you can do that, you're going to go far. It's about personality and work ethic, not about all of your qualifications.
I think we probably have time for one more question from the audience.
My question is, what advice do you have for companies who are looking to recruit women into the industry? What more can they do to attract women into the industry?
So it goes back to employee relations, and it's not even just women in general, and I think that keeping women in a separate category kind of hinders us a little bit, right? So we're here to learn, and we're here to learn about each other, and I feel like if you create an environment where somebody wants to come to work every day and they feel like they're heard, and they feel like they matter and what they're doing counts, you're going to attract people. It's about the culture that you create there, bringing people up from within, training them on the job. If they make a mistake, you're not fired. We learn from that. You know, what happened and what can we do to better yourself. So creating that environment where your employees will thrive and their families feel that they're thriving, that will attract anybody.
So my opinion is that you need to create an environment that allows your staff, regardless if it's woman, black, white, to be themselves. I think a lot of times here in the business, you feel as if you're not a white man, you're not going to be accepted, you're not going to fit in, you're going to have to find some place to land. I purposely have made an environment for my staff where it doesn't matter. You can land with anybody and you'll be comfortable. And then a lot of times, kind of even in this setting here, I've had a difficult time finding some place to land, right? It's all about allowing people to just be who they are and accept them at that level that they are.
I said to these women before we came up here, I'm like, you know, just because we're women, I don't want to be treated differently. I don't want different treatment. I just want to be treated the same. We shouldn't be given anything special or anything like that. Just like you said, an environment where you know that you're going to be treated with respect.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like we have another final question.
I'll make it quick, but you're going to have a long answer. So my first comment is I want to compliment the three of you ladies for standing up here, having the fire in the belly for this kind of work, overcoming the obstacles that are obviously in your way that we all need to work on. And the comment I want to make, question I want you to address is, in this culture of safety that we all deal with, what are you going to do individually for your team, your company, to get your employees, get your co-workers home safe without threatening, without fear of any reciprocity, and grow this sense of teamwork that we all need as a family in your respective jobs? And I want to compliment you all to stand in front of us, and we're glad to have you. And I don't care whether you're a woman or not. You're a team member with us, and you're going to either perform and watch my back. I'm going to watch yours, and you're out of here.
Thank you very much.
So from the demolition department standpoint, I make it very clear. I speak to every employee that we onboard, and I make it very clear what our level, the expectation for as far as integrity, and our expectation as far as the work environment that we provide to you. And I make it very clear we do not retaliate. If you feel as if we are not following the rules, because it's important for us to follow the rules just like we expect our staff to follow them, say something. If you see someone behaving in a way that is not in line with our integrity, say something. I will deal with them. And that comes from the top. Everyone in my department, and I'm responsible for over 100 people right now, everyone in my department knows that if somebody does something wrong and they're caught, they're out of here. We cannot tolerate the BS, flat out. But at the same time, if you feel like you're getting retaliated on because you came forward and spoke about that person, I'm going to deal with that person too. Because what you're not going to do is tear up my work environment because you feel like you're mad because Ray got fired. I don't care about that. You can go too. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you Ray?
Anybody looking for a class?
We won't be firing you, Ray. I'm sorry.
You can come work for us, Ray.
Sorry. I think that safety, everyone says it, you know, it's the #1 priority, 100%, but when everyone that you're working with, when you guys really genuinely care about each other, that's when I think that you have a safe work environment. When you truly care that you are going to go home, and you hope that they have the same respect and care for you as well.
So safety is like, I get on my soapbox story about it because it is so important, and we were having a conversation about this actually. I was talking to this gentleman in the front row. Total quality, total integrity, total safety. That's our trade line. At the end of the day, it is my responsibility, it's every single responsibility in the company that your father, daughter, brother, son, wife gets home to their family. We have an all-stop policy on all of our job sites. If you're a fire watch, if you're a laborer, if you're a superintendent and something doesn't feel right, you can say all stop. And that's solid across the line. You're not going to get in trouble. There's no repercussions on that. And like I said earlier, you know, we work from lessons learned. So if you make a mistake, you might get kicked off a job site for 3 days so we can figure out what happened. And I'm not saying that happens, but we're not going to fire you. We're going to say, let's investigate this. Let's understand what went wrong. And let's be better for next time. And then we take those and we have company-wide meetings and we say, hey, this is what happened here. Don't do that, or this is how we fixed it. So the communication throughout your entire company and making sure that everyone understands that they have a hand in safety and that it's their responsibility that the person next to them gets home, that's when you create the culture. And like you said, when you care and you truly love the people that you work with and you love the company you work for, it's simple. It's the first thing you think about.
Thank you all so much. Session today. We're gonna close down education and start cornhole. Oh, you got one more? Oh, shoot. One more, sorry.